Hey guys, Andrew Dobie here with Just a Chat With. If this is your first listen, Just a Chat With is a brand and creativity podcast where we talk with the world's best in class. In the last episode, we sat down with Kevin Swanepoel, who is the CEO for the One Club for Creativity, which is the world's foremost non-profit organisation recognising creative excellence in advertising and design. We had a great time with Kevin, so go check out that episode if you haven't already. Before now, we've had people on the podcast like David Martin, founder of Fantasy Interactive, world-renowned designer Michael Wolff, and co-founder of Sid Lee, Philip Mounier, and loads more. So go check them out. And you can also check them out on our website, justachatwith.com. In today's episode, I sit down with Andy Morahan, a world-renowned commercial film and music video editor. Andy has literally made every music video for pretty much every artist you have ever heard of. Guns N' Roses, Elton John, Michael Jackson, and the list goes on and on. So I'm actually going to just let you skip on to today's episode and see, because a hugely inspiring career from Andy and a great episode. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of Just a Chat With. I'm Andrew Dobie. Today, I'm excited as we're here with none other than the amazing Andy Morahan, who's a world-renowned commercial film and music video director. With nearly 40 years of experience in the music industry, Andy has produced music videos and films for artists such as George Michael, Aerosmith, Michael Jackson, Van Halen, Bon Jovi, Elton John, Paul McCartney, Billy Joel, Tears for Fears, AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, Wham, Tina Turner, Bryan Adams, and my all-time favourite, Guns N' Roses. And the list doesn't stop here. Andy has won an MTV Award for Best Director for George Michael's Father Figure and Best Video for Guns N' Roses' November Rain, which has now been streamed, I read this morning, over 1 billion times on YouTube. Andy was twice Grammy-nominated for long-form videos, Cyndi Lauper Live in Paris and Michael Jackson Live in Bucharest. And Andy also directed the groundbreaking Guess Jeans Cheat commercial featuring performances from Juliette and Harry Dean Stanton. The innovative piece won over 80 advertising awards, including 5 D&ADs, 6 Clios, and a couple of Silver Can Lions, to add a cherry on top. Andy's client list now includes Ford, Carling, Lynx, Bacardi, Vodafone, VW, Canon, and many more. And Andy was recently recruited by Toyota for their Prius campaign featuring Leonardo DiCaprio. Andy was also the first director to use Eva Mendes, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Sienna Miller in commercials before their illustrious film careers. And there's so much more that Andy has worked on over the year that we could chat through, but luckily there is an episode on VH1 Sky Arts called Video Killed the Radio Star, which covers Andy's career. And so you can go and check that out. Andy, that's one of the most impressive start of any podcast, I think, ever for anyone. Thanks so much for being here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you. It sounds better when somebody else reads it.
There wasn't enough room on my notes to write the whole thing. I think when we met, first of all, and I came across and was introduced to you, when you go and check out your wiki, and I would recommend that for anyone listening just now, that list goes on and on and on. And so how does that all begin? Where does that all start?
Well, it's kind of started. I mean, a very quick thing. My dad was at the BBC, and his best friend was Stanley Dorfman, and Stanley Dorfman used to do in-concert shows on Top of the Pops, and had the first colour TV in our area in South London, because we lived quite close to Stanley and his family, and he had the most incredible record collection I ever saw in my life, because he used to get free records and vinyl from the record companies. That's how they did promotion in those days. So I kind of grew up. I was Stanley's had one of his sons, Paul. I was his kind of best mate, and I was just entranced by this whole world of, music and television. And so and then I played in various bands during school, and then at art college, St. Martin's, when we started making our own little videos. And it was just at that kind of forefront of music videos in Europe. MTV had started in America, but they just started MTV Europe in the early 80s, and we came out of college, and there's quite a few of us, Sophie Muller, me, Vaughan Arnell. We were kind of second, third wave of, music video directors after people like Russell Mulcahy and David Mallet and Steve Barron and stuff. And being at St. Martin's, we kind of were lucky enough to be able to get kind of runners jobs in various production companies and stuff like that, and used to haul cans of film up and down the street. And in those days, you didn't have little mini cameras on your phone or, you know, editing programs on your computer. So if you really wanted to do something, you had to basically, you know, pick up or, you know, steal short ends from the fridge from some other production and, you know, borrow a bit of camera equipment and go out on the weekend and make your own thing. So we started making our own little videos. And when I was in a band called Havana Let's Go, which was signed to Polydor right after college, and we only had a couple of singles out and were dropped by the label, but I suddenly had a couple of videos and I could see where it was going, and I loved my film stuff. I'd done, you know, graphics and film studies at St. Martin, so I was kind of in the right place to jump in and, you know, have a little reel very quickly and go into record companies, and it all started from there. That's a really quick potted history of how I got to the point of making music videos.
Yeah, and you know, I read your dad was a film director as well. He directed The Jewel in the Crown.
Yeah, he did. Well, he started in TV. He did things like Z-Cars and you know, Emergency Ward 10, and then he graduated to the BBC and did plays there, and then ended up, you know, doing things like Jewel in the Crown. He also did that Clockwise movie with John Cleese and stuff like that. But so I was pretty lucky with my upbringing. But, you know, beyond that, his dad was a production designer who worked on many, you know, seminal British films in the 40s and 50s, you know, things like Jamaica Inn and The Long Arm and stuff like that. And his brother was a production, Barney was a production designer, you know, art director as well. So it kind of was, I was lucky enough to be in an environment and a family where that was the family business, basically.
Yeah, I was going to say, so was it always kind of, did you feel that you were always destined for that, or and were you inspired by them? Did they kind of mentor you and kind of, you know, send you down that path, or did you just want to do it, having seen it?
Well, the first thing I really wanted to be was a rock and roll star. A star, that's a moot point. Being a rock and roll band. I mean, that was music. Well, actually, was my first love. But I mean, you know, when you're in that environment, you know, my dad's best mates were writers and other directors and producers, and you know, and you just kind of pick it up as you go along, and in terms of your influence, and then you know, having, you know, being in various bands and that kind of, you know, emergence of music videos, it just seemed a really, you know, kind of interesting tie-up for me. You know what I'm saying? You kind of, I hate to use that cliche expression in the right place at the right time, but when I look back on it now, it was, you know, two things. I was never going to be a rock and roll star. I wasn't good enough for that. And, but then again, you know, I love film, so it was a perfect kind of hybrid of the two things to get into music videos.
Yeah, and was it guitar? What's your music interest?
It started on guitar, but I mean, weirdly enough, I broke my hand during that whole period, and part of my rehabilitation was you know, playing the piano in terms of my hand, and I never went back to the guitar. So funny how life deals you stuff, but yeah, I mean, that was just fun. That was fun school, fun art college, but it kind of set me up to make music videos.
Yeah, and so when you were, you know, you mentioned you were at St. Martin's. Then what did that course look like way back then? You know, and what kind of year was that we're talking?
We're talking 78, 79, 80. I'd been at Camberwell doing foundation, went to St. Martin's, and in those days, I mean, you know, there was pre-computer, so I started on graphics, and that was great for things like photography and silk screen, and, you know, not so much if you didn't really want to set hand, you know, hot set type or whatever it used to be called. But you know, you learn the basics of graphic design. But part of the course was, you know, we were doing storyboards for stuff, and then, you know, me and a few of the other people there, like Sophie Muller, were like, well, if you do storyboards, why can't we film them? And the tutors were like, no, you don't. No, you're the graphics guys. You just draw. And we go, no. We want to try and make these films. So we kind of bolstered ourselves into the only film department there at the time was, I think there's a proper film department there now, but it was part of the painting course. So we used to just hang out down there and actually produced a lot of our degree. Our degree show was films that we'd shot, and it worked out really well, really.
So from all those kind of self-initiated projects that you would have been doing while you were studying, and friends, bands, and things, where did the real first break come from? Where did the first one that brought momentum? Or
well, it was a weird thing. I went to work when I came out of college. I'd done some freelance work for a place called Cucumber Studios, which was run and owned by Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, who went on to create Max Headroom. And they were primarily a kind of animation studio, but you had ambitions for shooting live action. And I went, after college, I went and worked with them, initially freelance, and then, I became just one of their team, basically. And they were working on fantastic videos, like music videos, like animated ones like Accidents Will Happen for Elvis Costello, and Tom Tom Club, Genius of Love. And while I was there, one of my mates at college, a guy called Perry Haynes, who was managing a band called King, and King had we're just about to have a single out, and they needed to get a cheap video done for a song called Love and Pride. And I talked to Rocky and Annabelle about it, and they were like, "Oh no, it's too cheap for us." It's like, but if you fancy doing it, go and do it. And I went and did it, and it was a hit, weirdly enough. So it's funny. You can make little videos and do all stuff yourself and that, but first time you're associated with a song and a video that's in the charts, it's a game changer, and that was a hit. So suddenly I was able to, contact the marketing people at other record companies, like, and whoever was dealing with their videos at the time, and push my case forward. And then the second one was a Nick Hayward single. And then I think, then I've started, suddenly I was doing, suddenly we were doing a lot of cheap pop videos, because at that time with MTV Europe starting, they wanted a video for every single band. And the big guys, were doing things like, Duran Duran and Ultravox by then, but there was a lot of cheap work around. So we kind of cut our teeth on, Kim Wilde, Nick Kershaw, all that kind of stuff, followed pretty quick. And then, the next kind of, once I got foot in the door and you're doing stuff and having little hits with stuff, the game changer for me was probably working with Wham and George Michael, because, you can have the odd hit here and there and people going, "Oh, you're on MTV, that's great, but, suddenly you're working with the biggest boy band of the time.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother game changer, because that becomes, they're superstars. And so your work is seen everywhere. And so then I had that kind of journey through that next phase of pop videos, which was Wham, and I'll come on to George Michael later, but, Human League, Bananarama, all that kind of stuff, so real kind of pop, 80s pop stuff.
And did they just start rolling really quickly then? Because I've got the list in front of me, and again, I'm just mind blowing when you start to look at that. It goes from Wham, David Grant, Ozzy Osbourne, Pet Shop Boys, Ozzy Osbourne, Blow, and it just continues. And was it a case that it was a small industry at that point, and just everything came to you because you'd clearly shown success and helped them succeed, or?
Yeah, it's a strange thing, it's when anybody gets kind of busy and people seem to want, I think at first it was, we were, as I said, whether it was Sophie Muller or Vaughan Arnell or me or whatever, Big TV or that kind of generation, we'd all been at art school. We all kind of knew each other. And I think because we'd had a good, we'd been brought up in that kind of post-punk era of creativity. Anybody can do anything. People at my college at the time with me were people like, Dylan Jones and Sade and, incredible kind of, people like that who were just, your mates and a college. But, there was an environment then of yeah, we can do anything. We're a generation, because of the punk thing, which we were post-punk, but, you can do anything. There's nothing that can stop you doing anything. So, I think it was a kind of mindset that at the time that anything was possible. So we were completely prepared to jump in at the deep end and say we could do this and say we could do that, when probably, we made it up as we went along. But I mean, we were lucky to have that moment, I think. It was an incredibly kind of creative moment. And I think, bands and record companies, could suddenly have a connection with some very creative people who knew how to articulate our creativity and then prove that we could shoot it. So it very quickly became like, oh yeah, we'll go to you for that, we'll go to you for that. And then you'd build up relationships with certain people. And, after Cucumber, I was at a company called Big Features, which was run by Big Tom Watkins, who had, who went on to have E7. He used to manage E17 and Pet, but he was the one who introduced me to the Pet Shop Boys, And so at each stage, you're just working with better people and a better class of creativity, really. So it's kind of exponential. Once it starts to take off, it really took off. But I can't really, I can't really analyze it in terms of a career trajectory. It just went nuts, basically.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think there's something interesting, and I'm interested in your viewpoint on this. And some we've all got our favorite bands over time, and songs that we listen to. Some of them we really know what the music video was, right? And that's what you remember, and almost the music video elevates the song and makes it better. Sometimes I'm wondering, is it also the opposite? The song makes the video so much easier in terms of how, creatively it's just giving you so much more. I'm just interested in your viewpoint on that, on kind of, obviously you're going to be biased slightly.
No, actually I can be quite subjective about that, in the sense that it's like any kind of creativity. If you're planning and designing a campaign, you don't know till it drops or it hits, how good or successful it's going to be. But you're always looking for the magic. You're always looking for the sweet spot. And in videos, that can be the combination of the right artist, the right song, at the right time. Sometimes it's a disaster. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work at all. Sometimes you can have the greatest artist and a bad song and a good video. You can have a great artist with a bad song and a great video. It's all interchangeable, but you're always looking for the sweet spot, because if you get the sweet spot, it's a home run, basically. And I think all creativity is like that, really. If you could bottle it, we'd all be, we'd be doing it every day of the week. So it's a process of learning and experience and trying to kind of exact all the elements and line the stars in a row to get the best out of a possible situation. I mean, sometimes a video can, drag an average song up at the charts and vice versa. But as I say, when you hit a sweet spot, it's like, you can't even analyze it sometimes. It just, it's the right thing. And one of the things I think that gave me a little bit of an advantage, because I come from music in a sense, to me, it was being creative, but I wasn't, there are certain directors like Godley and Cream and stuff like that, brilliant directors, but they would have a really clever idea. You know what I mean? Like they'd use Morphing on Cry to, and it's an emotional song and it's a great video. And But I was never someone who was looking for, and God knows at the time, everyone was trying to find a new idea, like Steve Barron did with, Aha and the animation. Brilliantly done, whatever. But I always, because I'd kind of played music and I came from the kind of more playing in bands kind of thing, and I was a huge, pop culture fan. For me, a huge part of what I did, which I think bands and was that it wasn't just whether it was a clever idea or not. It's performance was a huge element of what I did. If you look at something like the Faith video, it's very simple. It's very monochromatic. It's very two-dimensional. Looks great. George Michael is quasi Elvis. Image is fantastic. Sweet spot. Great song. But for me, what makes it is the performance, and I just don't think you should lose sight of that. One thing, because I've done some some kind of external teaching and master classes at unis and stuff like that. And people go, "Oh, I got this great idea, I'll shoot the whole video backwards and get the bands to lip sync backwards." And I go, "Yeah, you can do that, but it doesn't mean it'll be a good video." It's you're looking for the sweet spot of the artist, the song, the lyrics, and the timing of it to make a great video.
That's so interesting because you obviously make commercial brand films and things as well, and have done. And I think often we find as a limitation is we don't have rights, or we can't get rights to these amazing A-list songs, right? And often a film it dies a little bit, doesn't it? Because it doesn't have the full sweet spot, because it can have the performance, it can have the writing, but it's like that magic of nostalgia of a song you already know. It's like John Lewis and these types of ads, they all play on this stuff, don't they? Because they pull in a big name, because it adds that, it's that other layer. And I think there's something quite interesting just now in the world that in social media for the last however many years, we've not been able to use, individuals, normal people have not been able to use commercial songs on anything they do creatively, right? So that everyone's trying to create stuff and they all put stock in, and it kind of subdues it a bit, until TikTok suddenly have figured out a model where everyone's allowed to use Elton John, George Michael, and everyone's getting paid. And it's amazing. I think I'm watching the creativity of normal people, and it's elevating because they've got these amazing songs to play with, and it it opens the audience up twice, because you get the creativity and they're there to hear the song they love. And it's kind of to your point, Andy. I don't know. There's a point in there somewhere, but I think it's like is that it's been that it's so good that you've had those three parts to play with, haven't you? You've got all the great ingredients.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing as well, because I think the advertising's way of dealing with that was then to get unknown artists, because they didn't want to pay the full sync rights for a famous Beatles song or Stones song, and then the people at Apple and that would pay out the millions of pounds to get them or whatever. They adapted, didn't they? And then there became this fashion of doing famous songs but with unknown artists, or the guy did Mad World and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And so that was a kind of way of adapting. I mean, I think because TV had this blanket agreement with the PRS, that it's weird, because you can use anything on TV in terms of drama and documentaries and stuff like that if they are specifically made for TV. So in EastEnders you might get an amazing Stones track in the back of the game, and you think, fuck, how did they get that? Of course they did. It's part of the blanket deal.
I did not realise that.
Okay. But then if you do like an independent movie, or a film on Netflix, or documentary or whatever on Netflix or Amazon or whatever, then you have to pay sync rights. So that becomes expensive again, unless it's about the specific artist or whatever. So you've got all those anomalies going on. And then in Hollywood films, yes, the big studios will pay the big money for the big track, and that works for them. But that's why on smaller independent movies, it's harder to get great classic tracks. So then they, tend to default back to, what advertisers did for a while, which is to get unknown people to sing famous tracks, because then they only have to pay a certain amount of the publishing. Do you see what I mean? So it is a minefield that one has to navigate. But going back to videos, yes, there were absolutely moments where, you get carte blanche to write an idea for the most amazing artist and the most amazing act, and and if it works, it's a slam dunk.
Yeah, and so leading in there, then you talked about creative process. I'd love to know, right? How does the process work in terms of, right? Let's let's pick out someone from here. I don't know. Well, you pick someone, and when they come and they bring a song, what's the first step for you? How does that look like?
It varies. Someone like an Elton John, he'll just say, what's your idea? And whatever you say, he'll probably say, yeah, great. Tell me when to turn up, I'll turn up. His people delivering him. And he turns up, someone like Axl on Guns N' Roses was working with a journalist called Del James, who'd written this kind of short story trilogy that became Don't Cry, November Rain, Estranged. But that's a story in itself, because the trilogy, that story, it didn't really turn out how that story was first conceived, because of various political things that were going on with the band at the time. Izzy leaving and Axl in and out relationship with Stephanie C. I mean, so the whole thing became like a circus. So, that's when you're just trying to hang on to any narrative. People go to me, those Guns N' Roses videos, most amazing, huge videos, narratives, but even I'd be hard pressed to kind of, to analyze exactly what went on in every scene, or deconstruct it for. As some students have, I get contacted by students who go, I've deconstructed November Rain and the symbolism here and there and what you did there. And I was going, yeah, well, great. If that works for you. You know what I mean? But it was a bit like Spinal Tap for me. But normally the process is I will get sent a track, and I'll be asked, amongst other different directors, to, put together an idea, a treatment. And over the years, we used to just write them in days before computers. That's why I've still got a library of photographic books. We go to the photocopier and we, put together look books and, mood boards and stuff like that. And then, of course, we do that all electronically now. But one of the big things that I found quite useful in those early days, and that was, I always had interest in writing and literature anyway. So at least I could articulate. Some contemporary directors of mine, didn't have that same skill set, but they would find a way around the box. And Vaughan Arnell, for instance, a really old mate of mine, who's made some amazing videos for George Michael as well, and Robbie Williams and stuff. His way of doing a pitch would pretty early on, because he's dyslexic and all that kind of stuff, would be to put a video camera in front of him and he would describe the video. Yeah. Great, whatever works. And I just think that shows there's not any one way to present something. You have to find the right solution creatively to present something. But in both instances, one has to be able to articulate. There was one director who everyone thought was a genius. I won't name names, but his career kind of fizzled out because he was so shy that he would sit in a meeting and he couldn't really talk or articulate, and people would get frustrated with him. Now, brilliant visualist, brilliant ideas guy, but you almost had to kind of sit next to him and listen to him whispering to find out what he was going to say. So, so I think communication is a huge part of what we do to get as part of that process.
Yeah, and so do you prefer to try and sell in what your vision is and kind of keep it as tight as possible, or do you believe that the best creative solution comes when you're in collaboration with the band?
Both. I mean, sometimes you have to lead from the front, and they're not particularly interested in collaborating. Sometimes you collaborate because it's a good thing to do, and sometimes you're forced to collaborate, which and then you have to be clever. Sometimes an artist's vision of themselves is, kind of myopic, and they only see themselves in one way. And, sometimes you want to expand the horizons of how they're seen or how they're perceived by people. So, but, that's the fun of it. Every single one is slightly different. And, but yes, I'd like to be able to articulate my ideas, sell my ideas in, and then stay as true to the ideas as possible. And when that's for music videos. When it comes to commercials, it's different. As you know, you produce storyboard. They tend to have storyboards first, or a script. And what you try to do is to elevate that, or suggest things that improve it, or even add things in. So you give them people, clients and agencies options in the edit. So you try and give that some fluidity as well. There's slightly two different kind of skill sets, really, even though they're both filmmaking. And then if you work with the Japanese, they will look at the storyboard and they can't I can't figure out why you'd want to shoot anything other than the storyboard. They'll be looking at the storyboard, looking at your image, and they want you to match everything. But I mean, that's to do with their culture. That's to do with them having promised their client a film based on the storyboard they presented. So you have to be adaptable, really. You have to, I always try and inject a little bit of me into everything I do. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And what do you think that me is in amongst that? Is there a signature that you have in it?
I think there's there's a few trigger points, but the marriage of music and images, the kind of lyricism of that, is, I find, sometimes you have amazing photographers who want to be directors but they're used to composing their images as static images because they're photographers. And what I've always tried to do is move the camera. So I think there's a, that connection with the music. So whatever I'm doing with this, music videos or commercials or whatever, films, I like to have a lyricism in the way I shoot. I like to move the camera. I like kind of craft. I don't, there's a fashion that has been since digital's come in of, people just picking up a camera and shooting point, and so, the craft of lighting, composition. I mean, I was taught so much at art school about composition. We would be taken, before we would get anywhere near a camera, our tutors would take us down to the National Gallery or the National Portrait Gallery, and we'd learn about horizon lines and eye lines. And, one of the most amazing things I did on foundation was, me and a bunch of other students were stuck in a room full of pictures and told to hang the pictures. And it's amazing what you kind of learn, again, about, say, eye lines, horizon lines, and stuff like that. And now I'm terrible. Don't ever invite me to your house because I'll rearrange all your pictures.
I'm now looking at your pictures behind you just now too.
Well, these ones here actually are from some sketches for movies from my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, because my dad gave me and my brother a whole folder of stuff because he was clearing out his... the attic, his garage, and he said, "Oh, this is some of your grandfather's stuff if you want it." And we're like, "Oh my god!"
Yes,
it was incredible.
Andy, I'm going to take this interview in a different direction now, and it's a technique my wife uses in taxis, and it's the most entertaining thing. She always asks taxi drivers, "What's the craziest thing that happens in this taxi?" Right now, to give context, you get great stories from taxi drivers, by the way. So it's a good thing to ask. But in terms of you've worked with and met some of the biggest egos, the biggest stars, the greatest bands of all time, and there's got to be some amazing and crazy stories in there that. And, I don't know, that I'm a big Guns N' Roses fan. So whether you wanted to shape some around Guns N' Roses, that would be selfish for me, perhaps. Or if you have any stories that are good stories, I'm all ears. And I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Guns N' Roses ones are a good source of great stories. And two that particularly I remember as being kind of ridiculous but kind of summed up the Spinal Tap kind of nature of that period was one was when actually it's two or three, there's some good ones. when we shot in November Rain, we shot the performance stuff at the Orpheum Theatre in downtown LA, and the band had their roadies and everything bring all their equipment down, the thing with the orchestra and Slash Gen on the piano and stuff like that. And this is a true story. And after the first couple of takes, the music was so loud that the rats were running out of the theatre. and Slash had some of his roses catch the rats for his pet snakes he kept back at home. So that is a true story. That is pretty mental. Another one was on Estranged, where you see a limousine, blacked out limousine, riding down the hill from Axl's house, which we shot from a helicopter, and it's blacked out window. You can't see anybody in the limousine. And Axl insisted on sitting in the limousine for every single take we did from the helicopter. Even though I said to him, "You don't have to sit in this limousine. You can go back home. You can go and sit in your house and watch TV. I can't see you in the car." He goes, No. It's my video. It's a video. I'm going to be in my video. And I just gave up arguing with him. So that was pretty nuts. Yeah, it's crazy, the crazy stuff. Him swimming with dolphins in Estranged as well, which was, he got nudged by a dolphin, who was just trying to be friendly and completely freaked out. And, we were in Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, and he hopped straight on a boat and went back to Miami and flew back to LA. It was just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
And so is there a lot of that kind of, like, I suppose, is there a lot of having to work around, people that have a lot of eyes on them and a lot of attention, and does it make your job harder? Does it make it?
Yeah, it does a bit. I mean, at the time, and to be fair to all of the Guns N' Roses at the time, it had become a circus. They were the biggest rock and roll band in the world. Yeah. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 was, album was going through the roof. They were on and off tour. The band was kind of falling apart. Izzy had left the band. Axl was pissed off with him for that. There were various, substance abuse problems going on with different members of the band. And Axl, who was probably the cleanest of the lot, cleanest of the lot. He liked to smoke a bit of weed, I think, but he was a pretty fit guy. You saw him live and everything like that. Was desperately trying to keep this kind of dysfunctional band together. And which was fine when he was on it, but then he'd have his meltdowns as well, and not want to turn up for it. People say, "Oh, they're the most expensive videos ever made." Half of them were, they were like they didn't turn up, or they were like vampires. You'd miss the daylight, so you have to keep them up all night shooting something else. So you get a shot of them in the daylight first thing in the morning, and they were moaning about it as well. Oh, I go to bed. They literally like vampires. So it was difficult because you're playing, as well as trying to be creative and shoot creative stuff and wrangle production and that side of stuff. You've got this whole kind of dysfunctional family. It's like herding cats, basically.
I can only imagine. I said to you when we met the other week that very strangely, just 2 weeks before chatting to you, I'd been watching the behind the scenes of November Rain on YouTube with you in it, not knowing that we were going to be sitting talking about it. So it was very insightful, an insightful watch.
I haven't watched that for a while. I should watch it again. I think I was a lot crankier then, as you said. I was telling people
there's a certain swear words that you said a couple of times. No, I suppose, Andy, in terms of, like, you've done so much, and it's very inspiring. It's inspiring for me. It's inspiring for everyone, I'm sure, who's listening or watching. And what's the highlight of, if you had to pick one out of everything that you've done, and if you were to be remembered for one of these films that you've made, is there one that stands out, or is it the collection of them all?
Well, yeah, the collection is very important, and the best ones. I could pre-name 6 to a dozen videos that I'm hugely proud of. I think the most gobsmacking, exciting moment was when I shot Michael Jackson and Slash together on that video, Give In To Me, because even though it's a performance video, I mean, forget what Michael Jackson became, or the different accusations about what he was and who he was, but he was the most incredible artist and performer at his height. And when Michael Jackson and Slash did a track together, and we filmed a video for a song called Give In To Me, which actually had its first airing on the Oprah Winfrey Show, which at the time was interesting, because normally a video like that would have its premiere on MTV or whatever. But to actually, I mean, literally the first take we did with them, I forgot to say cut. I was completely dumbstruck, basically. And even though the track had finished, I'm like, it was unbelievable. He was like watching a, he was like someone from another planet. I mean, he was like E.T. grown up or something. I mean, he didn't seem human, and when the music started, it was like, putting batteries in the Duracell bunny. He would literally, electricity would course through his body and he'd come alive. And for me, that was, it was a huge couple of artists to work with, doing an amazing track, performing in an amazing way. And even as I say, it was a performance video. It was electric. It was exciting, and I think that was really. If I had to single a moment out, that was it.
Oh, fantastic. And I suppose now looking back on this career, and not to say that it's finished, right? Because you've clearly got a very successful career that continues. But is there anything that you would do differently now? Would you head in a different direction, or are you pleased in the direction? I mean, I'm pretty sure you are, but I mean, I'm just interested to know if there's something else that you're unfulfilled with, or that you still want to complete.
Yeah, I mean, there are in terms of films and stuff. I mean, after the whole Guns N' Roses thing, I did. The third Highlander film, and I had small kids at the time, and it was a really tough thing to do. I had to shoot in Canada, and I had producers stealing money and stuff like that, and it was a real battlefield. So I didn't go near movies for years after that. I came back and basically started a commercials career, second phase of my career back in the UK, which was great. Don't get me wrong, that was fantastic, but I kind of rather let the movie side of things go, because it was just so disruptive in terms of family and stuff like that. Because film does consume you. So it wasn't until a couple of years ago when I made my own little small British film that I co-wrote, a thing called Boogeyman, which was like about 18-year-old British Indian kid who's obsessed with Saturday Night Fever. So it has all this kind of Bhangra Asian disco matchups and stuff, which was fun. And then that was a kind of labor of love. And now I'm developing, I'm set to do a film this year with Stanley Tucci and stuff like that. And I'm developing a couple of TV drama series and stuff like that, So that's kind of part of my career that I still want to do desperately. Music videos, yeah, if somebody asks, I might do one if I'm that interested. I mean, a few years ago, I did a 4 or 5 for Biffy Clyro because Simon asked me, and we got on great, and I loved working with them. And but that's a rarity these days. Commercials, yeah, I've done a lot of great commercials, fun commercials, and again, if I'm interested, I might do a campaign or something. But I really took a decision 4 or 5 years ago to really concentrate on the drama side of stuff, whether it's films or TV, because that's something that I feel is my kind of destiny, really. And so it's really difficult to juggle all those things. So you kind of have to prioritize.
So I suppose over your career, technology has changed. Cameras have got smaller, easier. The technology has sped up, and obviously no technology replaces the skill set of being able to storytell or to direct. But I suppose I'm interested where you see things are going now. That there's so many more people now have access to cameras and tech, and that entry level has come down. But where do you think storytelling's going? I've noticed with like virtual production and game engine stuff, Disney and Pixar are putting out like kind of films that then you interact with as games.
Yeah, I mean that's one element of it. I think that tech will always push things forward. As you say, the virtual production thing is getting really interesting in terms of creating environments, live action environments with inserted backgrounds that move in concert with the camera and stuff like that. And that's really good fun, and that's great. And it's going to replace green screen probably, and it's going to allow people to create worlds where they don't necessarily have to travel, which, given the COVID thing, is really interesting. But still, storytelling and the way people see things. I'm a big advocate of craft, and whatever level you are, whether you're a student or the beginning of your career, the middle of your career, or even now, I can sit there and I can watch a Queen's Gambit and just fall over myself at the brilliant art direction of it. You know what I'm saying? And the props and the wardrobe, and same with same with something like the Serpent. I can't really follow the story, but I don't really care because the clothes are so great and the environments are so great. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a big, and I think storytelling in a funny kind of way will never change. That's why some of the great Hollywood movies weren't necessarily about the way they were shot. They were the stories. You know, if you look back at the 40s and 50s, or even that kind of golden period in the early 70s of, you know, the Coppolas and directors like that, you know, those films then, you know, they weren't necessarily driven by the box office. They were, you know, it was about the craft of it. I'm a big person that people should learn their craft, you know, watch old films, learn how to do things. I remember my dad, you know, pulling me and my brother out of bed one night. I think he was watching an old John Ford movie, and he probably had a couple of glasses of whiskey or whatever, and he's going, "Look, boys, that's economy of style, you know, two people just 50-50 talking to each other, no over the shoulder, no close-ups, and we're like, oh yeah, great, you know, let's go back to bed." But it kind of rubs off on you, you know, and all this stuff with my grandfathers and stuff. I mean, he trained he trained in the art department as a draftsman for about 6-7 years before he was let anywhere near, you know, a set or a camera or whatever. And, you know, it all, for me, all goes back to, you know, to craft and art school and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a little pet peeve of mine about, you know, not anyone can pick up a film and shoot. No, that's wrong. You're right. Entry level is much easier for people. But my pet peeve is that people have become casual about that's enough. You know what I mean? And one thing, if you look at really great, you know, moving images, whether they're commercials, music videos, films, TV things, is when you see something that's incredibly lit, incredibly shot, and you know, that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by years and years of kind of, you know, studying and their instinct and looking at paintings and looking at eye lines and looking at composition and stuff like that. And if I'd encourage anybody to do anything creatively, it would be learn your craft, because in a way, the more you learn and the more experience you have, that's the release that allows you to do things you didn't know you were capable of.
Yeah. Well, Andy, I was going to ask about getting into it for people that are younger, but I think you've answered it, and I think you've given that nugget. So I'm conscious of your time, and you know, just want to thank you for, you know, being so gracious with it, and you know, and to everyone that was listening, thanks so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast, please do rate or review us, help us get the word out. We publish a new episode every last Monday of the month. And so thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.